You ever get that feeling that you're playing a game, but you don't quite know all the rules? Like there are these invisible forces out there kind of shaping your choices, your opportunities, and even how you see yourself? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain and take a look at that hidden blueprint. So, this is the big question, right? Are the patterns we see all around us, who gets ahead, who falls behind, is that all just random chance, or is there something more structured going on? Let's find out.
To crack this case, we're breaking out the sociologist toolkit. I want you to think of it like we have 5 powerful lenses, and each one is going to let us see the world from a totally different and honestly pretty revealing angle. So let's grab our first one.
Okay, this first lens, it takes a really big picture view. It sees society less as a happy, cooperative group and more like a giant arena where everyone is in constant competition.
Just think about the housing market for a second. Where you live can determine so much, right? The quality of schools, how safe your neighborhood is. Getting into the best neighborhoods is a really fierce competition. And let's be honest, not everyone starts at the same line.
And this idea has a name. It's called conflict theory. It basically argues that this inequality we see isn't an accident. It's structured. It's built into the system. So that housing gap, it's not a coincidence. It's the outcome of a system where different groups are always in a struggle for limited resources, things like money and influence and power. That fight is woven right into the fabric of society.
All right, now let's switch gears completely. I want you to take that first lens off and put on a new one. What if society isn't really about conflict at all? What if it's actually all about cooperation?
So, from this point of view, society is kind of like a living body. Every institution, like the school system or the police, is like an organ, and each one has a very specific job to do. Schools are there to educate the next generation of workers for the economy. The police are there to maintain order so everything else can run smoothly. But if one of those parts fails, let's say the schools are really underfunded, it causes major problems for the entire system. You get these ripple effects like higher unemployment down the road. And this idea is called functionalism. It's all about how these different social parts depend on each other, how they work together to keep society stable and balanced. The focus here is completely on cooperation, not competition.
So let's just put these two big ideas side by side for a second. On one hand, you have conflict theory, which sees this constant battle for power and resources that creates inequality. And on the other hand, you have functionalism, which sees a cooperative system where everything works together for stability. Two really powerful lenses, giving us two totally different views of the exact same world.
Okay, so we've been looking at the world from like a 30,000-foot view. Now let's zoom way in, all the way down to the individual level, because those huge forces, they actually play out in our simple day-to-day interactions.
I mean, think about it. Why does a suit just scream professional and competent, but jeans and a t-shirt might scream, well, something else? They're just clothes, right? Just pieces of fabric. But we, as a society, have given them a shared symbolic meaning, and these little symbols guide how we see each other and how we act every single day.
And this brings us to our third lens, symbolic interactionism. The core idea here is that society isn't just some big thing that's forced on us from the top down. We are actually the ones creating it, moment by moment, through the meanings we give to things, whether it's a handshake, a word, or yeah, even a suit.
The sociologist Irving Goffman put it perfectly. He said life is like a play. We're all just actors on a stage performing different roles. You might be a student, a boss, a parent, a friend, and we're performing for different audiences, constantly trying to manage the impression we're making.
So we've got these huge structures of conflict and cooperation, and then we have these tiny symbolic interactions. How do those two things combine to create the very real, very tangible hierarchies that we see all around us? Well, let's take getting into college as an example. For some people, that path is paved with advantages, right? Private tutors, expensive summer programs, maybe even legacy admissions. For others, it's a serious uphill battle with way fewer resources. These aren't just individual stories, they actually represent two completely different layers of society.
This system of layers has a name. It's called social stratification. It's basically the system that society uses to sort people into a hierarchy, based on things like wealth, education, and power. And where you land in that hierarchy has a huge effect on your life chances, which is really just a sociologist's way of saying your opportunities to have a successful and healthy life.
All right. Our final lens looks at one of the most powerful and often most painful ways that societies go about creating these hierarchies.
I mean, just look at the evidence. Study after study shows that drivers of color get pulled over more often. Researchers have found that job applicants with names that sound ethnic get way fewer callbacks for interviews, even when they have the exact same resume as someone with a white-sounding name. These aren't just opinions. These are documented, real-world patterns.
And this is where the concepts of race and ethnicity become so important. Now, here's the crucial part. Sociologists see these not as biological facts, but as categories that society created. They are socially constructed. But, and this is the key, even though the categories are constructed, their consequences, their impact on people's lives and opportunities are incredibly real.
So, we've looked through our 5 different lenses. We started this whole thing with a mystery. Are our lives shaped by hidden rules? Well, I think it's time for the verdict.
What our toolkit shows us, pretty clearly, is that the patterns in our lives are definitely not random. They are deeply rooted in these big societal structures of conflict and cooperation. They're shaped by the shared meanings that we all create and agree on, and they get reinforced every single day in how we interact with each other. We really are all navigating a social blueprint. And understanding this blueprint, well, that's the first step to seeing the world more clearly, to recognizing those hidden rules that are at play in your own life and in the world all around you. So the final question really isn't just about what the blueprint is. It's, now that you can see it, what are you going to do with that knowledge?